What if aging didn't mean decline, but instead expansion? What if it could feel more alive at 83 than you did at 53? And it had nothing to do with your genes, but everything to do with your choices. Today's guest is Michael Dorfman, certified health and nutrition life coach, plant powered longevity advocate, and living proof that your fifth stage of life can be your most vibrant. At 83 years young and thriving in Mexico, Michael isn't just existing. He's meditating, fasting, writing books, walking hills, and living with purpose. In a world obsessed with anti aging, Michael is pro living. And in this episode, he's breaking down the real keys to healthy aging, vitality after 70, and why life begins at 80 isn't just a mantra, it's a mindset shift. If you've ever feared getting older or felt like your best years were behind you, this conversation might just flip the script on what's possible no matter your age. But before we dive into this episode, y'all already know what time it is. Vibe with me, y'all.
Welcome to the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast.
Y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. It's your healthy habits and lifestyle coach, Jovonnie, and this is the safe space where your survival mode ends and your healing journey begins. So if you've been pushing through pain, bloating, fatigue, or hormone chaos, I want you to know your body isn't broken, it's speaking. Welcome to the Good Vibe Studio, Mike.
Thanks. Great to be here, Jovonnie.
Yes, sir. So, Michael, can you describe life after 80, that fifth stage of life? Can you share what does that really mean and how you personally came to embrace that belief?
Well, it's really a very interesting story. I started out, I became a vegetarian in 1976. And it wasn't even for health at that time. It wasn't really that wasn't my main interest. I just became interested in Western, Eastern philosophy and religion, and I found out that on that side of the world, there were many people who became vegetarian. So I decided to become a vegetarian, and that was in 1976, and I was okay. The years were passing, and one thing was happening to me. I was getting sick every single year, at least once or twice. And it wasn't a serious illness, more like fever, I think flu-like symptoms, fever, congestion, a headache, sore throat. And this was happening a couple of times a year, and I was accepting it. And my brother at that time, he was already into plant-based foods. So he told me that, well, maybe the problem is the dairy you're eating. And, so he told me, he said, why don't you try giving up dairy? And for me, and for many people, dairy isn't that easy to give up. I love the pizza. That was my favorite food, I think, and yogurt and just cheese in general. So I said, well, forget about it. I'm just going to continue with what I'm eating. So the years were passing, continue getting that sick. And then finally, my brother said, well, why don't you, excuse me, read this book called The China Study by T. Colin Campbell. So T. Colin Campbell was my connection to plant-based. And T. Colin Campbell is very short, just to make a little short story on it, he was plant-based. He was a biologist at Cornell University. And he's retired, but he's in his 90s already. And he's still doing his work and publishing. So I eventually took a course with him on plant-based nutrition, which I was certified. So he gave me this book. It was called The China Study. And I read it, and it just changed my whole mindset and way of thinking, because he was contracted by China. That's why it's called the China Study, of a 20-year study to study cancer rates in China, to find out what causes cancer. So it ended up they did these studies in over 150 small places in China and rural areas, and they found out that it's what you eat, the meat, that places that were eating more animal-based foods were getting more incidence of cancer, whereas the places in the rural areas, the communities, were healthier. So it ended up, I read the book and it changed my life. I decided to go plant-based, and that was 17 years ago. And I haven't looked back since then. And it's just, I just been thriving, and I haven't gotten those symptoms and those sicknesses. So that was the thing that basically helped me in my personal life. But then one thing that made a big change was a friend of ours, Beatrice, who was living in another part of Mexico called Cozumel. It's an island on the Caribbean. So Beatrice had cancer, not cancer, heart disease. And they told her that she needed to have a bypass surgery. So she went to the hospital and had bypass surgery. And she survived it, even though she did have a heart attack, even on the operating table. So they told her to go home. And for a year, she was doing fine until she started getting pain in her left arm, which is a sign of cardiovascular disease. They called her back to the hospital. And what they wanted to do, because the artery was closed again, well, actually, it was the vein that replaced the artery, the original artery, was what they wanted to put a stent into. So they tried, but they couldn't, because the vein was too narrow. And they told her that they couldn't really do much for her. So they sent her home. What they didn't tell her was, and they told my wife and her son, that she had about 6 months to live. So I found out about this, and I had already been like 2 years into a plant-based nutrition. And I decided that I was going to give her this book by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, called Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. And at that time, I'd been reading different books, and I was finding out that there were healthcare professionals and doctors who were actually reversing heart disease through nutrition, plant-based nutrition. So Caldwell Esselstyn was the chief of staff and the head surgeon at Cleveland Clinic, which is considered the probably the number one heart clinic in the United States and maybe even in the world. But his problem was he was discovering year after year after year that nothing was changing, that the heart disease kept growing. More and more people were getting heart disease. And what he decided that he was going to try something different. So he found out about the possibility of plant-based nutrition, and he applied it. And he was getting, because he was in the Cleveland Clinic, they were giving him uh, cases that were almost impossible to be even operated on. People were so severe with their heart disease, some couldn't even walk from one side to the other side of a room without having pain. So he took these cases, and it ended up that through his program, which still exists, he had about 95% success rating of these people. Instead of them dying within weeks and months, they were living for 10, 15 years. And this was amazing. And this is what I learned from this. And I gave her this book. And actually at the top of the book, it says the book that changed Bill Clinton's life. Because Bill Clinton had gone through this heart surgery, and he already had, I don't know if it was one or two stents put in, because usually what happens, if you don't change your nutrition, the chances are very high that you're going to have to get a stent within a year or two, because you're not taking care of the core issue, which is what caused the problem in the first place. So I gave the book to Beatrice, and she decided to make the change, even though she never was 100% plant based, 85, and that was also important. And it ended up, instead of living 6 months as the doctors predicted, she lived almost 9 years. So, and she didn't, and when she passed away, it wasn't from heart problems. So this was a thing for me, a big, an important phase of my life. And what had happened to me is like, I got to get this message out, because, doctors this isn't part of the default treatment for people with heart disease. How is this possible? Even if people decide I'll do surgery or no, at least they should be told that you should you should start eating healthier. But that's not what happens. In fact, after she had the surgery, when she was in the hospital, they gave her chicken and all kinds of stuff on her plate in the hospital, because hospital food isn't that great anyway. But what are you doing? So that's what happened with her, and so I started doing more and more research and found out, doctors really don't learn about nutrition, during all these 8 years that they're to become a doctor, and they don't learn about nutrition and lifestyle, and it's still the case. So this is the big challenge we have. But what is the message of all this? Is that we have to, if we really want to be healthy, we have to start taking responsibility of our own health. And that's what it needs to happen, that people have to understand that the body is has this incredible self-healing power, and really wants us to, the body wants us to thrive. It's like, it's hard to, this is the way I look at it. There's the body we have, and it wants us to live. Okay, so what do you need? What do you need me to do to help you live? And I remember going back to Hippocrates, because I just love that, some of his quotes. The body has is we inside of us is the best doctor, and
Mm.
it really wants to take care of us, and all we have to do is help it in its work. We don't have to do great things. We just have to help. Okay, so you have to find out, well, what does the body need to be, so that it can help us. So this is what I saw. So as I grew older, I started during these past 17 years, I started focusing on that and more. What can I give my body? And making lifestyle changes. So here I was, in my 70s. And the problem we have when we were in our 70s is we're taught that this is, the lifespan we have is say in the mid 70s somewhere. And if you look over the years, the last few years, it doesn't change. In fact, the last couple of years, we've been going backwards. I think last year was the first year that our children that were born were expected to live less than their parents, because it was never like that before. So it was like, why is this happening? And, and what the other thing that happens is that, we have this concept that we're when the 70s, like more than 70% of the people already have a chronic disease, which shouldn't happen. So you have a
You
chronic
said by the
disease.
time people are in their 70s, not back in the 70s. By the time people are
Oh
in
yeah.
their 70s.
By the time people in their 70s, they have chronic disease, and they're not, they just start believing the concept that, well, I guess this is about, we're getting close to the end here. So and that's what we're told. And doctors, and then if we have a chronic disease, doctors tell us that, well, we can manage the disease. You just take this drug or that drug, and you'll survive. You can survive in your 80s. Now, a lot of people do. A lot of people get through their 80s and even get into their 90s. And but are we really interested in just surviving? I don't like that. So here I am. I'm making my changes. I'm still learning. I'm still on my journey because I pick up new things from, the research I do. I have one son who is now doing uh, somatic therapy, and he's into this, and he tells me, I got something new. What about this? What about, learning how one of the last things that's happened to me is that I'm starting to get a thing with posturing, because a lot of people get older and they start, bending over. And okay, so what am I going to do about that? Because, this is what happens to people. And he's telling me that's because of the shoulders that we, are not strong enough, and our head starts going forward. But that's another story. But just the idea that I'm on this journey and I'm picking up new things on the way, because really want, it's not that I want to live to 100. I just want to really enjoy my life. I want to be fulfilled. I want to be able to share with other people what I'm learning. Like I play pickleball like 4 times a week, and I get on the court there, and I'm playing against 40, 50-year-olds. And I don't even look at them that, I'm 83 and they're 40. I say, I got to beat these guys, and that's what I want. I've always been competitive. So anyway, so this is the stage of life that I'm in now, which is the 5th stage. And I want to tell people and show people that this stage of life is as important as when we're in our 40s or our 30s or our 50s. It is still the opportunity to be fulfilled and to really thrive.
And I think that's a really important message, Michael, because like you said, a lot of people see aging as declining, and you're getting more towards the end than you are truly to a place where you should still be excited about this thing called life. Like you're still around to see your family grow and the different generations that are coming into this thing called life. And so I really like that you have this revolutionary way of putting out there that the 5th stage of life begins at 80, and it's truly just a mindset shift. Most people believe in that decline is inevitable after a certain age. And you talked about it in your 70s. There's more dis-ease being diagnosed amongst people in their 70s due to lifestyle, sedentary lifestyle, how they're eating, how their life is looking. And so what do you say to someone right now who's stuck in that narrative that, it's just inevitable. I'm getting older. This is just what's happening. My body's going to break down anyway because I'm aging. Like, what do you say to that person right now?
Well, there are places in this world, there are populations in the world where people my age and older are really thriving. And now I'm getting into the blue zones, where the blue zones are actually where the oldest and the oldest and the healthiest and longest living people on the planet live. And this was discovered back around 2009, I believe it was. Dan Buettner, who was working with National Geographic, he was also a Guinness World Record holder in bicycling. He was an explorer. So they sent him to find out where the healthiest and longest living people on the planet live. So he went around, and it was called the Blue Zones because he was actually using a blue marker when he was putting it on the map. So he called it the Blue Zones. And these are populations that live 10 to 15 years longer than we do in Western countries. So he went around and he found out, and the list, well, I have the list here. He found these places. It's Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, Ikaria in Greece, Loma Linda in California, and Nicoya in Costa Rica. And these are the people that live the longest, have the most people over 100. And he actually made this documentary, I think it was either last year or the year before, called Live to 100, The Secret of the Blue Zones, which is on Netflix. And it has subtitles for people who need in Spanish, if people need that. But he revisited these places so you can actually see how these people live. And it wasn't only to find out where they live. The idea was to find out, well, what do they do? What similarities do they have throughout these five blue zones? And if you look on a map, they're all separated. With either by
So what did
oceans
you
or
see based on this insight that you were getting? And they went to go see how the people are living. We talked a lot about food, and we'll probably get
yeah.
more into that. But what did their lifestyle truly look like, Michael, outside of how they were eating? What did it look like? Like maybe give like the top three things that people
Yeah.
might not be thinking about that's affecting how they're truly living.
Okay, one thing was movement. We go to a gym and we go for an hour or whatever we do it. Then we come home and we sit around and we say, "Oh, I did the exercise I did was enough for the day." But when you look at and this is really good if people can watch the series, this 4-part series on Netflix, they show you that they're living in rural areas, but they're moving most of the time. They're either walking uphill, walking to work, and just even if they're sitting, they're getting up every maybe half hour. They're just moving, staying active. So it's a message that and also they go to work. They don't retire. Most of them they don't see that when I'm 60 I'm looking for retirement. They're not retiring. It's like they're just living their life, and they're working. So even they're working over 100 years of age, they're still working. So the whole idea is to be active, and we're doing exactly the opposite in the West. It's getting worse and worse, and I think that's one of the main problems we have, why we're getting sicker and sicker, because we're sitting around, we're not exercise, doing this movement. And in other words, go out and don't sit around so much. Sedentary life isn't the answer. We have to do exactly the opposite. Go out, if you want to walk your dog, gardening, just walking, playing a sport, just something that you're just staying active. Okay, so that's one of the things. The other thing, which is getting more and more, because I've been listening to interviews with Dan Buettner recently, and he's talking about this whole idea of community, caring community. What's another problem we have on this side of the world? We're depending on our relationships on the phone. We're no longer. I remember when I was young, we used to go out and play, and because there wasn't all this distraction of the internet, of the phones, So now the problem is, especially young people, they look at the phone. When you're talking to somebody on the phone, it's like, okay, that's it. That's my relationship. No, it's not. There's a big difference between talking to somebody who's not in front of you, because you're not getting that feeling, that exchange of energy with that person when you're talking to them, and when this person is right in front of you. So one of the things I was mentioning, the caring community, and that whether it's a religious community in the blue zones, or there's certain things you have in common that you talk about, or whatever it is. So when you see the blue zones, they get together a lot and they share, but there's a loving feeling, and that is so important, because we are, human beings are social creatures. We always have been, ever since even with the hunter gatherers in our way back, our ancestors. They lived in small tribes, and they depended upon, when our hunter gatherers, they had to depend on each other, because of there where they were in this world, where there were animals, and there's so much things that were threatening them. There were nomads. So the whole idea of the tribe, of the community, is very important. So that's another thing that I felt was very important. And the other thing was the purpose. Why are you getting up in the morning? Especially you get older. That's one of the problems. Oh God, how things are is like, what am I going to do today? But when you get up in the morning and say, you have a purpose. Hey, I'm going to go out. A meaning to your life. Every single morning you get up is like, wow. because when we were kids, we did that. It was like each day was new with a new possibility, a new opportunity. So those are, I think, three things that I took out of it.
I like that. And I really appreciate you for breaking that down because lifestyle does matter. And where you are in it and what you're willing to change also matters. And so, what I want to do right now, y'all, is I want to tell you that in the description of this video, there's 15 hidden lifestyle disruptors that might be causing you pain, bloating, fatigue that you don't even know about. And so I want you to get that resource. It is in the show notes. Check it out. And then you can take the Spot Your Trigger quiz to see where in your life, where in your lifestyle could you be fueling the inflammation that's keeping your body in fight or flight mode and causing the inflammation, the pain, the disruption, and robbing you of the vitality that you absolutely deserve. So check the show notes and get it. So, Michael, you talked about the movement, staying active, you talked about caring community, and you talked about purpose. Those are huge things that people might think are really small, that if you actually value them and you showed up and you engaged them, you interacted them in regards to your lifestyle, they have a compounding effect of what it looks like to truly age and be in a health span than a lifespan. And so I'm really grateful that you broke that down. Let's take it back though, because you really started this conversation with very impactful information. You talked about plant-based nutrition. You talked about what the Chinese study looked like, how it transitioned your life from vegetarian into a plant-based lifestyle. You talked about the role that dairy plays, and so many of us can resonate with the dairy. Y'all drop dairy in the comments if you're still with me and Michael having this conversation, because dairy is definitely a hard thing to get out of your lifestyle, to really let go of. It can be addicting. There's so many different recipes and food experiences that include the dairy that we found comfort in, that we found culturally relevant. And so dairy for me as well was hard to shift from. And I'll be honest, like I went from dairy to then the processed mocked replacements, dairy-free replacements. And then now I'm getting more into how do I make a Caesar dressing out of cashews, coconut milk and coconut cream with a way to reframe my Alfredo pasta that I absolutely love. And so there are alternatives as well to the dairy to make that shift to still creating those experiences that you absolutely love. So don't let dairy rob you of the life that you truly live, because it's a hard transition. Like there are opportunities and options out there for you. You just have to find the ones that taste great for you, but you deserve to go on that journey and identify them. And if you need some help, check the show notes. I have a plant-based alternative guide as well that helps you see the nutritional benefits that you can get from grains, from nuts and seeds, from fruits, from vegetables. And then it also gives you a lot of different recipes for juices, smoothies, and meals that you could prepare, making those alternative options. And we're not saying go plant-based. We're saying eat more plant-based foods. A testimony to that, Michael, was your friend Beatrice, who was 85% plant-based after having heart disease, complications, and challenges. And she went from potentially only living 6 months to 9 years, all through lifestyle changes, specifically in what she was eating. And we kind of go with the bypass surgery. We get the stents. And like you said, we're really accustomed to making those changes based on what doctors might be recommending for us to do. But we really don't take the time to truly sit back and see what lifestyle changes do we need to make to truly support the impact and how it could really shift our life and turn our lives around, in addition to whatever Western medicine we may choose. Because I'm not here, like everybody deserves their own journey. Everybody gets to make their own decision on what's best for them. But there's a lifestyle that you're living, your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, how you're creating your lifestyle all shift from your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, because they impact your decisions, and your decisions create your behaviors, and your behaviors
Absolutely.
create the lifestyle that you live. And so you do things differently. And so I just wanted to kind of go back on some of the things that you really talked about. And I like that you said you were vegetarian first before moving into it, due to philosophy, due to what you're learning. And I feel like the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast is that safe space to tune into conversations and learn what things look different for other people in their journey, from breath work to what they're eating, to how they move, to how they're regulating their nervous system, being aware of just who they are or who they're becoming, and taking some of the experiences that they have and providing purpose. And I think that was a nice number 3 to lead off with into the segue of this conversation, was with purpose, because there's so much to our life that we can have purpose in if we actually utilize that. Because Beatrice could have just said, oh, I have heart disease, I have all these challenges, let me just give up, let me let go. But no, she had to have enough purpose and enough why to figure out, how do I want to continue to extend my life and have a life that is truly enjoyable to live. And something I also love, Mike, was when you're talking about as you age, your shoulder muscles, neck muscles kind of get a little weak, and we get a little bit more hunched over. And you talk about, your son getting into somatic therapy, and he's excited about the different things that he's learning, but it's really not about managing disease. It's really about, how do we reduce those symptoms, those experiences? How do we minimize and eliminate the dis-ease in our life versus just managing something just because that's the current state that your body is in? I don't know about you, Mike, but you changed how the current state of your body be getting sick, a couple of times throughout the year because of the vegetarian lifestyle shifting to the plant-based. But I know it had to go in with your thoughts, your feelings, your belief. Your mindset had to change about life outside of just food. For me, it was a diagnosis of a stage 4 endometriosis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovary syndrome, and 2 small fibroids at the time of my surgery that said my body was in a high state of inflammation and I needed to change some things. Yes, I wanted the surgery because I needed to know what was going on in my body, but I am living proof that when you start taking lifestyle changes to a whole nother level, it truly shifts the state that your body is in. So your body doesn't have to stay in the current state that it was in when you got the dis-ease or that chronic disease that came about. And there's too many people at every stage of their life thriving because of the lifestyle changes. And I'm so grateful that you were able to kind of speak on that. And so when people are thinking, because of your lived experiences and studies, what do you feel like people misunderstand most about aging and health span?
I think what they misunderstand is that they don't really have enough information, or they don't understand that the body has this tremendous self-healing power. And just like it helped you go through what you had to go through, I've been through several things myself. I had sleep apnea, and not too long ago, it was like 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and I didn't even know what it was. But my wife was telling me, you stop breathing while I was sleeping, and you stop breathing for like 20 seconds at a time. And I never knew I had this. I may have had it for many, many years, but it was just that when she told me about that. So I didn't know, I had no idea what sleep apnea was. I just knew that I was stopping breathing during the night until finally my brain clicked in and said, you better breathe. So it made me breathe. So that happened. But I had a panic attack because I didn't know what it was. I went to the hospital, emergency, twice, and I then went to a heart specialist. Why am I stopping breathing? And then finally, I looked it up on the internet, and it told me I had sleep apnea. So I went to see a doctor and I had this whole test during the night. And a lot of people have sleep apnea, and I know my son has had it. So I went to a doctor. They made this mouthpiece for me because there are 3 levels of sleep apnea. There's a minimum, medium, and then the ones that are in the high. I had like 15 episodes every night. That's what it came out. So I had this piece made for me, and it stopped me from breathing, having sleep apnea, by keeping my tongue up so it wouldn't go over the windpipe, so I would be able to breathe. But it ended up that I was breathing through my mouth until I found out. I read this book by I forgot his name. It was called The Oxygen Advantage by McCune. And it said he had another way of curing sleep apnea. and that was by breathing through your nose. So I had to learn how to breathe through my nose, and I learned later that it was, mouth is for eating and the nose is for breathing. But most people breathe a lot of the time through their mouth. So he said, you got. I put tape over my mouth for like it took 3 months, so I wouldn't breathe through my mouth. I just remember. So, and I would sleep on my side, which is the best position to sleep, to learn how to breathe through your mouth. So finally, I just, after 3 months, I don't have sleep apnea anymore. So that was one thing. And then I had a lot of arrhythmias during maybe 10 years ago, but for a few years, I was getting hard arrhythmias, and I didn't have to stop it. I just knew I would get up or I would have to walk fast to get my heart in rhythm again. And eventually my body took care of it. And I'm just going through all these things where, in different ways I went, I'm just giving you examples. Another thing I was in my 40s, and I had this pain on the side because I used to run every day, the jogging, and I had this pain on my side, and it wouldn't go away. And it wouldn't go away. And then finally, I was ending up, I couldn't get out of bed, and I had to go get an MRI. And the doctor told me that I needed a replacement for the femur, which is, the ball on the that goes into your the hip. So I said, I walked out of there. He said, what are you kidding me? And this was like 45 years ago. So he told me I need a replacement. I said, I don't want to get a replacement. I'm only in my 40s. So I found out, I had this naturopath doctor, and she told me there's another option. Keep walking, keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. And it could work that a callus will form, because it was called, what is it called? Necrosis vascular. That was the name of the disease. It was just worn out completely. I had no blood circulation on the femur. That's why it had to be replaced. So she said, keep walking, 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 walking. And eventually a callus would form on the head of the femur that take the place of the capillaries that were there. That's what happened. I haven't had a problem in 50 years, and I hear these stories of people I know of what the body does. And we have we don't really understand. The body is much greater than any computer. It's just fantastic. And I love the idea that it wants us to live. Just help us and we'll help you. And doctors are okay in certain circumstances where you need help. But if you really have a good lifestyle and you eat properly, mostly plant-based, doesn't have to be 100%, because even in the blue zones, they're not 100% in most cases. They eat some meat, they eat some fish, but let's say 85, 90%, just like our friend Beatrice. We need the fiber. We need to stop eating ultra-processed foods, and we have to eat whole carbohydrates. And that leads us to the next subject, which is, the whole idea that the latest things, the keto diet, the paleo diet, is based on plant-based, high fat, low carb. And that's exactly the opposite of what we should be eating. So for long-term health, you could feel well with those things, but they have no, whether it's a keto diet, or the paleo diet, there were really no long-term studies showing that it'll help you into your 80s. And that's what the problem is. So people may feel, there are people who eat just meat and they're in their 50s and hey, I feel okay. Or, people who eat ultra processed foods, if you're 50s and 60s, you should be feeling great no matter what. But if you want to live long, you have to understand that, most diseases don't happen, one day to the other. People may say, oh, I was diagnosed with cancer. And they'll say, yeah, you were diagnosed with cancer, but this cancer probably, could have started 30 years ago. So you have to remember that, it's a process. Your disease may not appear until you're in your 70s, but it could be that it started in your 30s. So that's important. That the earlier you start to change, the better chance you're going to be able to thrive when you're in your 80s and 90s.
Let's drop the word change in the comments. That was good, Michael. Thank you for that change. The earlier you are to adapting and adopting to the change, you just never know exactly what you're helping in regards to your body when it comes to vitality at whatever age your body decides to speak to you in regards to how it is resonating. And I do a lot of that even for my students, whether I was teaching in high school or middle school. It's just telling them what they're eating right now, how they're navigating drama or their misplaced emotions and the things that they're resonating with and going through. It's just like all of those impact your health in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And so when it comes to stress management, when it comes to how they're eating, when it comes to how they're moving, like I'm very mindful of those things for them and talking to them because it starts right now. It starts at whatever age you're in right now. And I also like that you reminded us about the self-healing power that the body has within itself, especially if you give it exactly what it needs. And it's really important that you talked about sustainable ways of living. So many people can start seeing drastic results and changes when they're choosing a fast method or they're choosing to lock in for a certain period of time, whether it's 30 days, 21 days, 90 days, 75 days, in regards to how they're planning to challenge themselves to showing up differently. And then they start going back to how they were living afterwards. And it's just that reverting back. And so it is really important that you find someone that you can trust and that you feel like can truly guide you through this journey and support you through the journey that you decide you want to go on and what this lifestyle starts to look like for you and making it happen for you. It's a personalized journey. It's a customized journey because no one's healing looks the same. Michael's healing doesn't look like my healing journey. My healing journey doesn't look like the coaching client's journey that I've been able to help them with because everybody's body is different and people want to live life on their own terms, but it still needs to be in a term of vitality. It still needs to be in a terms of being able to really address chronic dis-ease and reduce inflammation and to get that place to the point where there's not as much pain. And like you said, it takes sometimes getting that doctor's insight to know what's happening in your body, what's going on in your body, for then you to identify, how do I want to move forward? And like you, Mike, you was like, I don't think I really want to do surgery. Like, are you kidding? I've been a runner all my life. This pain has just come about. Like, what do I need to do to address it? And you chose to go a naturopathic route, get insights from them, and they told you something to do. And you went with that and you found that reduced level of pain. Now you're sitting here without having the surgery, playing pickleball against other people that are 40 and 50, and you're in your 80s. Like, that's a testament of choosing the treatment and the lifestyle that you chose to do. And I also am grateful that you showed us so many different examples of what you had to experience, even breaking down the sleep apnea, because there's so many people at different ages of their life that are going through sleep apnea. And it's like, okay, what can I do to change? And you talked about it. You said the mouth is for eating and the nose is from breathing. And I kind of want to get into that because it's beyond just food, even though we both know that once we started eating differently, our dis-ease and our chronic issues that our body was speaking to us changed because we got more plant-based. But you practice things like intermittent fasting, breath work, hot and cold therapy, meditation. Can you walk us through what your favorite daily wellness practices are and how they've truly contributed to your vitality? Like, sometimes people need specific examples of what it does to what it looks like.
That's a hard one because they're all good. They're all, enjoyable. And so I like, I do breath holds, which is I do this usually 4 times a week. I like that very much because it gives me energy, and it it allows the oxygen when you do the breath hold. So I do breath holds. Actually, I go before I play pickleball. I do meditation first. I don't know if I could really separate them that much because I start out with meditation when I get up, when I don't get up. Before I get, just as I'm waking up, I do meditation. Then I follow it with breath holds, and then I'll do the for maybe 4 or 5 times a week. I'll do the intermittent fasting, which I really enjoy, and I do. I think one of the main things I try to, which I think is a very important thing beside nutrition is just focusing on the problem of stress that both so many people go through. uh, you, Stress is I think stress is more intense for people now than it's ever been before because of the world the way it is. People are losing their jobs, their you know their relationships, in family relationships, and not having an economically, especially what's going through. People are going through that a lot in the States at this time. And the problem with stress is that if you get used to it, you'll accept it. And I think a lot of people live stressful lives, and that's dangerous because no matter how you take care of yourself, whether it's good nutrition or lifestyle, if you're living with stress where you have this, the a cortisol hormone, which is the stress hormone, constantly working, it's going to cause chaos in the body. And, that's one of, so why I don't separate all of these things, these practices I do, is because together it's helping me to uh, deal with stress better. It's helping, one of the things, because I'll get into this whole thing with good stress. It's called eustress, and it's when our ancestors, the hunter gatherers, they had a lot of stress in their lives. They had to deal with these animals. They had to deal with. They were nomads. They didn't have air conditioning. I mean, they didn't go into their home. They had to move around a lot, and they had to deal with changes in the environment, in the climate, and so they were always and constantly in stress. And they are able to, those that were able to deal with this, give you an example. The people who are the fastest runners could run away from the animals, where the others were the slowest run. So we were these people who survived, the hunter gatherers, the stressful situation. There were changes in the DNA, and we've inherited that from them. So we have the ability to deal with stress. But one of the worst things to do is not to uh, face challenges. When we don't face challenges, especially as you get older, uh, we sit around and don't do anything. We just get lazy and we just watch TV, or we just a very sedentary lifestyle. We're not challenging ourselves. We need to challenge ourselves mentally as well. It's like diseases, whether it's Parkinson's disease or getting senile, or you know these diseases are of old age, which I'm very well aware of. So what I try to do is I want to challenge my brain. I want my brain to work. I don't want my brain to not do anything. And it's the same thing with physical exercise. We want to challenge. What happens when you go to the gym? You go to the gym, you lift some weights. Why do you lift weights? Because you want to make your muscles stronger. So what happens with the muscle? You're challenging that muscle. When you do weightlifting and it's painful, it's actually it's tearing the muscle cells, the tissues. It's hurting the tissues, and that's the pain. But eventually new tissue and new cells will grow stronger than the ones you had before, but it's because you challenge the muscle. So these things we have to know. That's why it's important when you get older to be more active. You need a challenge more, and it's beautiful life when you start making challenges. So each one of those lifestyles are challenging myself. So I do hot and cold showers because it's very good for the immune system. And for me, it was like, I hated that. I couldn't even imagine. Every time I was like, what do you do? I can't. So, take a hot shower and then you go to cold. And I was afraid of it. I hated it. And now that's what I do, because my son would tell me, you got to do it. You got to, if you want to do that, if you want to challenge that, and then you learn about the experience of what it does to your body when you go from hot showers to cold showers. It just ignites all these cells. It's it's just incredible. So that's why I didn't wanted to go into one, because it was sort of one habit after another that, I just use them to as a whole,
And
so I
that's
do.
good
Yeah.
because it's a whole practice for you, Michael. But some people might not even know. But because you said meditation, breath holds, intermittent fasting, stress management, and then hot and cold showers, that gives people 5 different ways that they could potentially choose one after hearing this conversation to start being more intentional about and seeing what does that benefit look like to me. How does my body feel better? How do I feel after I'm doing those things? You just talked about it. You could be looking forward to energy. You could be helping yourself at a cellular level with the hot and cold showers. And so it's not just choose one. It's more likely Michael is doing this to help him with his vitality at the age of 83, and he's thriving, and he's looking at this stage of his life as the 5th stage of life, and how he's not just surviving, but he's finding ways to still feel good, feel vibrant. And it's because of his lifestyle and the different practices and habits that he had. And he just gave us 5 of them. So in the comments, choose one out of those 5 that you say really sounded good to you, whether you've already done it and you like it, or is one that you're going to try today. And I'll run it back one more time. Meditation, breath holds, intermittent fasting, managing or eliminating your stress, and hot and cold showers. And it's all about getting in challenges. And I like that you talked about that too, Michael, because some people think, oh, I'm having a challenge in my life. This is bad. Like I want to minimize and eliminate and reduce as many challenges, when challenges really help you grow. They help you evolve. They help you build character. They help you build resilience, but also it's helping you stay sharp mentally, physically, emotionally. And so challenges are needed. They are vital to your growth and your vitality. And so I'm really happy that you also talked about the value that challenges bring to people's life and how they should kind of go out there and get a little bit more of them if they don't feel like they're getting enough. And so I'm really happy that you talked about that as well. What do you feel like out of those 5 practices do you believe has had the most unexpected impact on your well-being?
I guess maybe intermittent fasting.
Mm,
That has been very
explain.
good for me. And because one thing it has done for me, it has helped me uh, to understand that, we eat 3 meals a day, and and that's been the norm. That's what we usually do. So uh, sometimes I learned that sometimes I eat when I'm not even hungry. So because it's 3 meals a day. So I eat like a breakfast at 9 o'clock, lunch. Well, here in Mexico, we eat a later lunch, like around 2 o'clock, 2 to 3. And then at night, but it was always like, oh yeah, it's lunchtime. And then when you do intermittent fasting, you find out that you're eating when you're hungry. And it's amazing because you do the intermittent fasting, and it's not hard to do intermittent fasting. I thought it was going to be hard because I do with a 14-hour window, which is good. Some people do it more, but so I would stop eating at 8 o'clock at night, and then I would start eating at 10 o'clock the next morning. It would be the breakfast. So and then I would find out, I could not, and I wasn't feeling hungry even at 10 o'clock. So I was learning that, paying attention to my body. What does the body want? Does your body want to eat now or not want to eat now? So you start, and it also helps with weight. If you want to, it's just you learn more about how you're stuck on a habit of eating, and then you find out that it's a habit that I wasn't this hungry. And then you can even go to 16-hour window if you want, which my son, he does 16-hour window. And so I think I learned a lot about, being addicted to food, being addicted to eating at a certain time. I learned that we can control that, and we can understand more about how our personal body really, what the needs are. And then we could either say, oh yeah. When you just find out that the whole hunger cycle, how the hunger cycle works with your body, and then you could pay attention to it. And I what I do is because I play pickleball in the mornings. So sometimes I just don't stop eating at 8, even though, and then you sort of understand more. Is like, am I really hungry, or I just have a desire? I'm just paying attention more to my body, I guess, the needs. That's what I could say.
For someone who is stuck in that hunger cycle, or just eating whenever they feel like they're eating, or they're just accustomed to eating, what would you say to them in regards to not necessarily intermittent fasting, but truly shifting their relationship with food, or identifying and addressing those habits when it comes to eating that are kind of stuck in that way? They say, okay, Michael, you're telling me about hunger cycles. You're telling me, oh, am I really hungry? Or I'm supposed to have 3 meals a day. I think I'm accustomed to eating this or eating that at this time or that time, or I just need to eat. What would you tell that person on how to truly identify whether it's a habit that's helping them or hurting them, and what should they start to do as they address this hunger cycle and identity and become a more awareness?
Well, I think that even if you eat 3 meals a day, I think the most important thing is to eat healthy. And, you know, and eating healthy means that you have to start, substituting. You have to start making little changes. And for me, it's changing habits. Habits, we're, human beings are creatures of habit. And I've been learning that. And once I learned that it's not such a big thing, it's really just changing a habit that we've been doing, and just we don't even think about it as a habit. So, uh, I was reading this book on habits, and one of the things I got out of it is part of the coaching that I like to do is that little changes are great. You don't People think that it's either all or nothing at all, and that's not true at all. And for most people, it's if you do a little change, and then you get a satisfaction or a reward for that because you made the change. Hey, you know what? I feel a little better. I lost a couple of pounds the other day. Something that's a rewarding to you. Then you say, hey, maybe I should do a little bit more. So I think it's if you really, but you have to want this. It has to be something that, yes, I really want to try that. But then you don't have to make it could be a little change. And if you do a little change in today and another change in tomorrow, a tiny little change tomorrow, maybe it is just, okay, you know what I'm going to do this morning? I'm going to have a bowl of oatmeal instead of, eggs, or something else. I'll try that. And most people like oatmeal. If you could, put the fruit in there, maybe a lot of the listeners are, hey, I like oatmeal. Or even just say, I eat some plant-based foods, and I eat beans, I eat rice, I eat, so you're on your way. So maybe just, okay, instead of having meat, 5 times a week, try it 4 times a week. Start out with that. So I think if people just say, I don't have to, it's all because one of the things, if you make it like your goal is to do that, and that's what, oh, I'm not going to reach my goal, so it's not going to work for me. Forget about the goals. And that's the way I look at it. I don't, it's more, what's more important than the goals is your process, your system to reach the goal. And it's for everything. You have like sports, you have teams, that want to win a championship. Okay, you want to win a championship, but look at the talent you have. You don't have good talent there to win a championship. So what do you have to do? Well, the process is we got to get better talent. The goal will take care of itself, you know. So that's the whole thing, and that's what I think. People who, especially you. I guess the biggest goal is to lose weight. So if your goal is to lose weight, then you make a mistake. Then you say, "Oh, I'm never going to lose weight. Why even try?" But if your goal is just to be healthy, eating healthier, and forget about the losing weight, you lose weight, by being healthier. It's just be part of the deal for your body. So I
I
don't know
like
if
it.
that
It's
is
really focused on the work, not the goal. And it's focused on those habits. And I'm grateful that you reminded us that we're creatures of habit. And so sometimes you might be saying, how can I change who I am? And it's just identifying those habits that you're having. Something I enjoy as a healthy habits and lifestyle coach is when I'm working with clients and they come and they have a goal, it's really finding those, like you said, those tiny steps, tiny challenges, tiny habits that we're starting to add into our life of things that we're consuming, things that we're doing, and how we're showing up and being present. And it's not necessarily they want to lose weight, but they want to reduce the pain, they want to reduce the bloating, they want to get their energy back. Yes, they want to lose the weight if they're not at the ideal weight management. And so eventually it does fall off. It does reduce. It gets better because of all the different lifestyle changes and habits that they're starting to put in place. And so I'm really grateful that you reminded us about that, but also saying how they are definitely a compounding effect because once they build that confidence of integrating those new habits over time, even if it's just starting with one, and you're building that rhythm, you start to build the confidence in yourself of knowing how to take care of yourself. You start to build true self-love and care for yourself because you're showing up and you're making different decisions when you're addressing your stress, when you're addressing being in a caring community, when you're addressing how you're doing the deep breathing and you're becoming more aware of your body. A lot of things shift. Your whole life shifts in turns because healing is a lifestyle. And it truly never stops. And you hear me and you hear Michael talk about how we're learning, how we're reading different books, how we're having conversations with other people. And there's still so many different holistic and natural ways that people can heal and see benefits of that. And so I'm really grateful that you broke that down, Michael. And I kind of want to say, um, what habits do you believe most people under 50 should be building right now to ensure that they thrive in their 70s and beyond?
Well, I think to me, non-negotiable is adding more plant foods. I think that's the best start is to do that. And when you make, we're talking about the habits. I think it's important to understand that you change the habit is changed in the brain. Once the new connection, that's what and what is it because result of repetition. It's just simply that you change. You do. It's like you learn to play a drum. A person learns to play a drum, and you have your left hand is like hanging out like this. It doesn't follow your right hand with if you're a right-hander. But if you just keep on doing the left hand, your brain is going to pick up, make the new connection, and so it's repetition. So what if you want to, make a change a habit? If it's a bad habit, you want a good habit, and you know what you want to do, what the good habit is, just repeat it. And it's based on, continue trying it. We don't know when the new habit will click in. You just don't know that, but you know that if you repeat it, it'll click in there, but you just have to repeat it. It's just a matter of repetition until the brain makes the connection. And all of a sudden, that's what happened with me with the hot and cold showers. It was I was doing it again as, I'm not going to, I'm still not enjoying it. Or I'm still not, but now I'm seeing it. The cold somehow has changed. It's not cold. It's just a sensation on the skin, and it's amazing. It really is amazing. So I think people, if you want to change, do what you want to do, what you need to do. If it's changing your health, or doing exercise, going, whatever you do, just keep doing it, and eventually it'll become easier and easier, and it'll click in, and then it'll be part of you'll have the new habit instead of the old habit.
I like it. Thank you for that, Michael, and breaking that down. And so you're currently writing the Longevity Wellness Revolution. What core message or breakthrough do you hope people walk away with from this work, this body of work that you're producing?
Well, I think that it's the mindset change that I call it the fifth stage of life. I go through the stages from like 1 to 19, and each stage is, has a different sort of meaning to it. And the fifth stage of life is from 80 all the way up there, to 100. But I also have a little plus after at 100, because I don't know how long I'm going to live. But it's the mindset. And once you get that mindset of that, yes, it's almost like you have a new identity. Your
Mm.
old identity was that, oh, I could survive. The new identity is, oh, I'm thriving. And I don't even look at the age. And I'm sort of, I'm sort of proud of my age. I'm 83. But when somebody asks me how old you are, I say I'm 83 and a half. Just show that I'm going to be 80. Actually, I'm going to be 84 in January. So in 2 months, I'm going to be 84. So I have no problem with that. And people are saying, oh, I don't want to. People ask my age. I don't want to look that age because we're so stuck on our, how our appearance. That's like, oh, I don't want. I was what do you call it? When I used to give talks. I've talked. How many people would like to live to 100? And then you get like half of the people raise their hand. And then how many people don't want to live to 100? Half of the people raise their hand. Well, why don't you want to live to 100? I said, well, I don't want to look like that. I don't want to look at that person. I said, but if you're really feeling well, I mean, and really enjoying it, would you want to live to 100? Yeah, okay. And they all would agree, 100. So it's like we want to be well. And if we're well and we can avoid the chronic diseases, because that's very important. To enjoy your later life, you have to be healthy. You have to really, and that's the base. Because once you have chronic diseases, then you're worried. When am I going to die? You have to go to the doctor. You start feeling that. So really the goal is to be healthy as you want to be healthy. And then you can really, because what is it, the fifth stage? You have all the wisdom of a lifetime. We've experienced it. We've learned so much. And to me, my purpose is to give back. So what I'm doing are these podcasts, writings, hosting, because in other parts of the world, the elders are revered. They look up to, they're guides because of the experience. Unfortunately, on this side of the world, you go into a home, or like you're not worthy or you're over the hill. Doesn't have to be that way, because there are other civilizations, other populations that are experiencing the later years of life and thriving, so we can do it too.
Y'all drop the word wisdom in the comments if you're still vibing with us through this conversation. Wisdom of a lifetime by the time you reach 80. I really appreciate that, Michael. And I'm so grateful that you're taking the time to really put this body of work together and put it out there for any and everybody who can benefit from it. And again, like you said, it's all about the mindset, the thoughts, the feelings, and the beliefs. So we're going to get into the vitality sparks round. And this is really just to leave the listeners uplifted and inspired. So quick responses to the questions. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right, let's go. A belief you've held for decades that still guides your daily choices.
That I have a desire and a want to keep growing and learning.
All right. A food or practice that's non-negotiable in your day.
It's eating whole plant-based foods, not refined plant-based foods.
What brings you joy in this season of life?
Is to be able to still be active and help other people understand the importance of being healthy.
One thing younger people don't yet understand about growing older.
Is that we're all growing older and we should be prepared to grow older and be healthy when we're young.
What surprised you most about yourself in your 80s?
That I could write again. Because I used to write when I was younger, and I thought and I could never write again, and now I have something to write about. So I'm just so happy to be able to do that.
The most underrated plant-based food for vitality.
Uh, I don't know. I think of oats.
Okay. Finish this sentence. Life begins at 80 because
because that's the way it should be, and that's what we deserve.
All right. So our final two questions, Michael. Give some advice to the girl dads, the male role models, father figures, partners, spouses of girls, women dealing with heavy, painful periods, pelvic pain, bloating, fatigue, infertility issues. Give some insights on how males and partners and spouses can be more a part of the healing journey for those dealing with endometriosis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or fibroids.
Well, I think that I'm not the well educated on all those problems, but I one thing I uh, plant based foods, having a, a, a healthy lifestyle, uh, especially with plant based food, helps with everything. In other words, it's not that each disease, whether it's heart disease, whether it's cancer, whether it's type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, they all have different, you know, or different diets. So I think that to start off with, I think that working together and having planning plant-based foods and meals will be a good start, because I think that it if you have you need a healthy body, and we need to give the body what it wants, and then it'll help us be healthy. So, because it also starts with the gut. We want a healthy gut, because that's where so many of our diseases, that's what they're saying. That's what the science is saying now. So if we give the body, the gut, our gut microbiome, what it needs to eat, which is fiber, then it's a good start. So eat more fiber in your life, uh, and fiber comes from plants. And 95% of the people in the U.S. don't get enough fiber, and that's why we have so many gut problems and other problems.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate you breaking that down. Something that I absolutely love was your body. Give your body what it needs, not just what you want to give it. And I think based on our journeys and getting into a plant based lifestyle and really addressing some of our chronic issues and conditions and dis-ease at the root cause, we realize that plant-based foods can definitely be medicine and provide us with relief and give us what we need, especially when it comes to the fiber, because that is where most of the fiber is held. And so I'm really grateful that you said that. And I think eventually over time, giving your body what it needs, it in turn starts to be what you want. Your body starts craving more of the things that helps it heal, that helps it feel vibrant, that helps it keeps going, gives you the energy, reduces your pain, keeps you playing pickleball in your 80s against 40 and 50-year-olds, not going in there thinking they're going to take it easy on an old man, or sitting in
Right.
there in a classroom full of middle school and high school students as someone approaching 40, having more energy than them, and they're less than half my age. And so when you start giving your body what it needs, it starts to become something that you want more of, because of those compounding effects that it's having by taking those lifestyle shifts. And so I'm really grateful for that. Last question. If you could have a meal with any historical figure, who would it be and what would you all eat?
I think it would be with Hippocrates.
And what are you and Hippocrates eating?
We're going to be eating. I don't know. I have to think about that. But we're going to eat. I guess we're going to eat some raw stuff too, because I don't know if at his time they weren't that. I don't know what there was, but I guess I'd just like to be with him, eat what we were going to eat, and just I'd like to ask him some questions
I'm with
and
that,
tell him
Michael. I can
tell him
see
what's happening now.
some raw plant-based eating with Hippocrates sounds like a vibe. I've had some really good raw plant-based meals, so I'm definitely in on that. So thank you, Michael. Let the
Uh,
people know where they can connect with you, where they can find you, where they can pick up your book.
Yeah, well, I have my website, which is longevitywellnessrevolution.com, where that's all I do weekly articles. And for people, they're published on. So I have a Substack page, so I send them out on that, including some what do you call podcasts. I put on that and my weekly articles. I'm on the book I'm writing is the Longevity Wellness Revolution, and that's hopefully to come out this year. And it's what I'm talking about. It's a revolution because it's a new way of thinking, and I, you know, I hope that people will pick it up and read it and just see that our potential is there to really thrive in the later ages.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, y'all. Whether you're 35 or 75, Michael's story is your reminder that vitality isn't about chasing youth. It's about choosing life every single day. It's
Right.
not too late. You're not too far gone, and your story isn't over. Your next chapter might just be your most empowered one yet. So if you're willing to write it differently, lock in. Y'all start with your mindset, then your plate, then your pace. It all matters and it all adds up. Y'all, it's your Healthy Habits and Lifestyle Coach Jovonnie, host of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. I want you to make sure you check the show notes, connect with Mike, but also get some good healing vibes and value. Get your 15 hidden lifestyle disruptors guide so you can identify where in your lifestyle, where in those habits could be fueling your inflammation, keeping you stuck in pelvic pain, fatigue, and bloating. Also, take the Spot Your Triggers quiz so you can identify what are those areas that are really keeping you stuck from really thriving into your vitality that you absolutely deserve. Get out of that survival mode. Y'all, thanks for vibing with me.